Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Glad you could make it here today. Excited for today's topic, which is the raw honey challenge. If you've never heard about the benefits of raw honey before, I want to share that with you to open the show. And then I actually want to get into the raw honey challenge, who it's going to benefit the most, and of course, which type of honey you will want to look for. So raw honey for me has always been something that I've looked into, that I've known about, because as someone with allergies from a very young age, honey was something that could actually make me feel much, much worse. And I never exactly knew why that was. And then I started to get more into natural health and actually learn, well, raw honey can help you to get over your seasonal environmental-based allergies. So I found that very interesting, very fascinating. But what I was missing was always the dose, right? So sometimes, as they say, anything that can be good for you can also be bad for you, and also basically vice versa, right? So like all of these things that I felt were bad for me when I was younger. Now, again, there are things actually in life that are bad for you. There's no doubt about that. But this thing that was purported to be so helpful was actually quite harmful to me. And I see that a lot in natural-based health, because sometimes what you need is the actual protocol that your practitioner has given you, but your body is so far out of sync, out of balance, that it can actually feel like it's causing even more symptoms. And that was absolutely the case for me. But honey goes beyond all of the benefits for allergies. And again, I'll get into those in just a minute. Believe it or not, raw honey has been studied now by major hospitals and universities and actually been proven to be highly beneficial as an antimicrobial, antifungal, and antibacterial. They're using it for burn-based victims. They're using it on wounds. They're using it as a cough-based suppressant for bronchial-based issues. And I want to get into that before we start today's show, or we get to the raw honey challenge. So let me take you through that. And this is pretty interesting because, you know, when I always want to back everything up with the latest and greatest scientific research and clinical-based inflammation. I always say that, in information. So what you have to understand is, like, this is literally published on the Mayo Clinic's website. Okay, so they talk about raw honey. Again, they don't really understand raw honey from an actual natural health perspective. And so they say raw honey is made up of a mix of amino acids and vitamins, minerals, iron, zinc, and antioxidants. And it can be used as a natural sweetener. And it's an anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and antibacterial agent. So again, don't get mad at me, FDA. I'm just reading what the Mayo Clinic is actually saying. Anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, antibacterial. Yes, that is what we know, right? So then it can help for what? Hundreds and thousands of issues, because it can work on inflammation, it can work on essentially oxidative stress, and it can work on microbes and bacteria. But on their own website, they list it can be helpful for cardiovascular disease and reducing the risk of heart disease. It can be helpful for coughs and upper respiratory infections, as well as a nighttime cough. And if you've ever heard me share before my black coffee and raw honey recipe, that's the whole recipe, by the way, black coffee with raw honey, it's been shown that it's more effective than the leading cough medicine. Black coffee, raw honey, okay? Obviously, you'll use that during the day. You won't use it at night. If you want to use decaf at night, you're welcome to. There's still a little bit of caffeine and raw honey, just about a teaspoon. That's all you need. I always get asked how much? Just a teaspoon. Okay, and then it can be helpful for GI-based issues, and I'll be sharing with you some research actually potentially on H. pylori and other gut-based inflammation issues, neurological issues, brain-based issues, memory disorders, and as we spoke about before, burns and wound-based care. Again, this is absolutely amazing. The research is out there and it's being used in clinical science. So let me get just a little bit deeper here. Why honey is so powerful? Well, keep in mind, in Ayurvedic medicine, they don't consider honey a food. I gave away the punchline right before I got to it. So honey is actually considered a medicine. So it's considered a natural medicine. Of course, Ayurveda uses natural health-based remedies. And it was always considered that. And when I was in clinics in Sri Lanka and India, we always used raw honey with a lot of our herbal-based, we call them medicines or decoctions. Now, one of the things that I was able to do is I would take the ground up herbs. So I would take these specific herbs. Of course, I was told what to do in the Ayurvedic-based clinics. I would grind them up based on the particular client, what they needed, the dosage amount, and then I would be able to mix the specific amount of herbs, and there was just a little stainless steel, basically serving little spoon, and you would mix that with a certain amount of honey. And the honey was used to pull all of the herbs together and make it into what we would consider like a vitamin, a little pill. And that's what we used. And so that kind of pulled everything together. But also these herbs are very, very bitter, right? So when you think of most of these herbs, like think about oregano oil or olive leaf or barks and all these different types of things, very, very bitter and very earthy tasting. So since most of the people in this clinic they were from Europe, a lot of people from Germany, all over the world, but a lot of people from Europe. That's what we were using. Now in other Ayurvedic clinics, they were in downtowns, and of course we were just serving the people of India and Sri Lanka. But here's the thing, and a lot of people don't know this, and I'm going to save this for a future episode, but one of the things that they're using in natural health right now is actually sugar. Now we're talking about raw honey, all right? So every teaspoon of raw honey, there's about 6 grams of sugar. It's not very much at all. Like it probably will cause little to absolutely no impact on your glucose levels. Like just 1 teaspoon, okay? That's all we're talking about is 1 teaspoon, okay? So what we would do, and again, we used even less than that if we're talking about what goes into making these certain pills in the Ayurvedic clinics, is that you can use glucose, and in raw honey, there's a mixture of fructose and glucose, a few others, but what we did was we used that essentially as a Trojan horse. Now, what that line means, and they're using this in cancer-based therapies as well, and again, I now have to give you my disclaimer, I'm not here to provide you with any medical advice, medical treatment plans, medical diagnosis, or medical cures. But the glucose actually then allows a better uptake of whatever it's mixed with. All right, and we know this. Like we know one of the best ways to hydrate is actually with glucose and sodium. And caffeine, believe it or not, it's far better than water alone, okay? But again, this only really applies to people that are doing sports and they're sweating a lot, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, the glucose and fructose, but mainly glucose, from the raw honey actually allows the herbs to be better absorbed. Again, I'm going to save that for another show, but that was one of the secrets that we were using in these Ayurvedic-based clinics to get better results in a faster period of time, and they were much more palatable, of course. Okay, so inside of the honey, though, we have powerful antioxidants. These are coming from the polyphenols that are also anti-inflammatory. All the people out there telling you not to eat any fruits and vegetables, again, somehow they've forgotten about one of the most powerful things from nature, and one of the only things proven to help with cancer are polyphenols and antioxidants. These are the brightly colored fruits and vegetables that you see. They're powerful anti-inflammatories. They battle oxidative stress, they battle aging, and they help to balance the inflammatory effects of other foods that you may enjoy as well. And believe it or not, right now, it may even be used in the future as a powerful cancer-based treatment. And that was in a 2017 study that I'm going to link up for you. So all the studies and how to complete the Raw Honey Challenge, which is coming in just 2 minutes, is at stephencabral.com/2461. All right, a couple of the other ones that I had to share with you, antibacterial and antifungal based properties. This means it can be used on the skin topically, or it can be ingested as well. I've already talked about the wound healing. Let me link this up too. I'm going to link up a bunch of these studies for you, just in case if there's any practitioners out there or people that love to get deeper into this, we're going to get a little bit deeper. So again, cuts and burns, I've used them for my daughters as well. Scrapes, cuts, we put raw honey on them quite often. And oftentimes that's happening during the summertime. In Maine, we have access to lots of local raw wildflower honey, which I'll be talking about that versus Manuka honey in just a moment. The phytonutrients I spoke about, helping with digestive issues, so potentially helping with H. pylori, and then also to repopulate the gut because it is a powerful prebiotic. That's why we don't allow raw honey for the first 3 to 4 weeks of our CBO protocol, which is where we're helping people rebalance their gut. That's the CBO. So if you want to learn more about that, that's stephencabral.com/CBO. However, again, we don't use a lot of prebiotics those first 4 weeks. That's, again, one of the hallmarks of it too, where we get great results removing first and then beginning to slowly repopulate. I talked about the sore throat and a cough. I mean, absolutely amazing research on this. I use it all the time now if I need to, and sometimes even preventative-wise, I'll use it with my my natural health-based protocol if I feel like I'm going to be speaking on stage or I'm traveling or any of those things. And the brain, this is the interesting thing. Anytime something's anti-inflammatory and it has powerful antioxidants, it can be good for the nervous system. It can be good for the brain as well. All right, just one risk, of course, I always have to give this to you. There could be a potential botulism-based risk with raw honey. This is why it's just never given to children, infants, let's just say under the age of 1 or 2 years old. But besides that, no real risks for adults. All right, so let's get now into the raw honey-based challenge. This is something that, again, that I used myself for probably pretty close to a year. And again, I was pretty much as bad as it gets in terms of allergies. Okay, so all the other benefits with cardiovascular, digestive, skin, burns, wounds, what else did I mention? All the antioxidants, et cetera. Okay, so that's one more reason to use it. How much do you need? 1 to 2 teaspoons a day. We're not talking about a lot of raw honey. You can put it in your smoothie. You can take it post-workout. You can take it in some water, mix it up with a little bit of lemon. You make your own lemonade, right? So just squeeze some raw lemons in there, the juice, of course, and then you just add a little bit of raw honey. You've made your own lemonade. It's great. That's how we make our daughters tea at night. If they want a little tea after dinner, it's a touch, maybe a half a teaspoon of raw honey. That's 3 grams of sugar. That's it. And then the lemon in there, and that's their natural tea. Really good digestive aid as well. So we'll sometimes do that for our daughters after dinner if they're looking for a little something sweet. We can do that, or whatever it might be. All right, but for allergies, so I spoke about at the beginning of the show that I had debilitating allergies until my late 20s, and I'm talking about debilitating, meaning that every April, early May, and I never know exactly when it would strike because it was all based on when the trees were about to bloom that year. Because before they bloom, they actually start to bud. A lot of people don't know it, but there is pollen then already at that point. Now, my allergies get sent into a frenzy. My eyes, which are my, Achilles heel in the first place, they get swollen, they get puffy, they get itchy. My eyes basically turn dry and like glass. They have little cuts, micro cuts all over them. It is awful, awful. And it doesn't matter how much Benadryl I used to take in my 20s. I could take, and I did, take 5x the amount of the daily serving that you're supposed to. So essentially 50 milligrams, 2 Benadryl every 3 hours, and it didn't touch it. People like, at that dosage, you should have been asleep and, totally fine. Didn't happen at all. It was not working. And so what I learned, of course, over the years was that I had to rebalance my digestive system, which I eventually did, my gut, and I had to seal up my gut wall. That took a little time because, again, this is going back many years ago. And so what we know now and things like we do with the CBO protocol and CBO finisher, we didn't know back then, not to the same level whatsoever. There wasn't a protocol to it. We didn't even know about biofilms. And so, and again, I'm just studying. I'm in my 20s. I'm trying to learn all of this. And it's a journey. It's a journey for all of us. And that's why I try to give back on this show as much as I can. I mean, all of the shows are searchable at stephencabral.com/podcast. And there's really a podcast on everything, I think, by now, pretty close to it, And so what I want to share with you is this. Yes, I fixed my gut. Yes, I sealed up the gut. And then I also worked on stress and the Th2 immune side of dominance. And that took time, but it worked. And one of the things that I did was I realized that I was allergic to my environment. And one of the things that you can do before your season comes, so for me it was April, May, so for some people it's this fall, right? And what I did was I used raw wildflower honey. Now the wildflower honey has to come from your local region. I lived in Massachusetts, and so I got raw wildflower honey from Massachusetts. Typically, wildflower honey is going to be darker in color, but it's all based on the flowers that the bees are pollinating. And what you get inside of the honey is actual little bits of pollen. So what I could do is I could buy this raw honey and I could use it, and you want to get it fresh. So you want to get that season's honey. And the reason that you want to do that is what's local that time of the year. Now, it's not going to change wildly, right? It's just not. So here's how you do it. So if you're suffering from sneezing, itchy eyes, post-nasal drip, coughing, headaches, brain fog, fatigue, any of the typical allergy-based things, itchiness, etc., you may want to give this a try. Again, I can't give you medical advice, but you might want to look into this. So it's called a desensitization protocol. It's not dissimilar to getting allergy injections or the sublingual drops, which are even a little less toxic. If you want to go for one of those, sublingual drops are typically a little less toxic. They have less metals in the actual injection. So what I had to do was I had to start really small. So I'm going to give you a really small dosage, because when I would even do a half a teaspoon of raw honey, the back of my throat would itch immediately. Like it was within minutes. And so again, I was the sensitive person. So I get that. I have empathy for that person. So this is how I started. I started with 1/4 of a teaspoon per day, and not directly on my tongue. Now that's the best way to do it, but I would mix it in something else. I could mix it in with some water. I could mix it in with a smoothie. I could do whatever I want, and I got a little bit of that into my system. Now, if you want to just do it the straightforward desensitization route, you're going to do 1/4 of a teaspoon. Just take it right off the teaspoon, into your mouth, and you can just mix it around in your mouth for a second and then swallow it down. That's enough. It's going to get into your system. That little bit of pollen is now your immune system is going to see that, and you're just going to gauge, okay, what are my reactions? What are my symptoms to the pollen and everything else in the environment that are collected on these flowers? If there's none, great. That's what you want. You don't want any real symptoms. Now, you can't go too much smaller than 1/4 of a teaspoon. You could do 1/8. Like you can start smaller, but I'm just starting you at 1/4 today, all right? So 1/4, you can do it first thing in the morning, but if you're gonna have symptoms, you may as well do it after dinner, right? You might as well do it a little. I always do anything new basically at dinner time, because if it's gonna cause fatigue, which allergies totally do for me, then that's what I would do, all right? So you're gonna do 1/4 of a teaspoon, and if there's no reaction, good, you can do that for a week. Still no reaction, fantastic. Then you're gonna go to 1/2 a teaspoon per day, all right? So 1/2 of a teaspoon per day. We just went from 1/4 to now 1/2. Do it the same time every single day. Any reaction after a week, I'd say, yeah, a little bit. There's just that little faint itchiness, itchiness of the eyes, something like that. Keep it going. All right. You're going to go with whatever dosage causes a little bit of symptoms until those symptoms are completely gone. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. Ask me if there's questions in the comments. Just literally leave your question in the comments. Okay. So then after there's no symptoms with a 1/2 teaspoon, you're going to go to 3/4 of a teaspoon. Okay. So 3/4 of a teaspoon. And again, if you're someone that's trying to fast through the morning, no problem. You can do this after lunch, mid-afternoon, after dinner, whenever you want. 3/4 of a teaspoon. Keep in mind, 1 teaspoon is only about 6 grams of sugar. You're going to do 3/4 until you have no symptoms. You're going to do it at least a week. And then if there's no symptoms, you're going to go to 1 teaspoon. 1 full teaspoon is your goal. Now it's a level teaspoon. All I do is put 1 teaspoon in and I drag it along the side of the jar, little drag, and that makes it level. That's it. That's how I know I'm getting 1 teaspoon every single time. Now, you're going to do 1 teaspoon, and you're going to do that until there's no symptoms whatsoever. If you ever have to drop back, you can always drop back a level. All right. So then if there's no reaction, all you want to do then is start this same exact process, but twice a day. So you're going to do 1 teaspoon. You already know you can do that at night. Great. Now you're going to do 1 in the morning or 1 at another time of the day, and you're going to start with 1/4 of a teaspoon. Okay. Then you're going to go to 1/2, then 3/4, and then you're eventually going to work up to another full teaspoon. And then that's it. That's literally all you are going to do, is you're going to get up to 2 teaspoons per day. Now, if you want help for that allergy season that's coming, this should start 6 months out. You can do it 3 months out. It'll still work, but not to the same degree. You want to really work on that desensitization process. And so my recommendation is that you start now for the April-May based season if you're someone with spring allergies. Now, if you're someone currently with allergies, wait until it's starting to calm down or do the smallest absolute possible dose. That's my recommendation. Again, this is not for children under 1-2 years old. They should not be eating unpasteurized honey, although my recommendation, honey should never be pasteurized. You do not want cooked honey. It's not healthy for you. You're not going to get the benefits without the enzymes and all the natural based phytonutrients in there. So that's my recommendation. Hopefully this was helpful. Let me know if there's any questions on this honey desensitization based therapy. therapy. It is the honey challenge. I challenge you to go with the raw honey challenge. And again, I told you Manuka honey. I'll link that up because my time is up for today. But go to stephencabral.com/2461 for the benefits of Manuka honey. And this can be taken by anybody. But if you want the benefits for allergies, you want to use raw wildflower local honey. All right. Check out stephencabral.com/2461 for all the show notes from today, as well as the pertinent base links. Take care, everybody. And if the show was helpful, please do feel free to share it with anyone you believe it could serve.